Hi, hope you're all having a good week. This is the professor again, and we're talking about case study parts 2 and 3. The assignment for 2 and 3 was to define the gap, and then part 2 to come up with an initial solution. So let's talk about defining the gap. One of the things that I mentioned is that this is analysis that you could quote, but if you did, you should explain why you included it. This is not an academic paper. So if you did, you might want to remove that. I don't know that anybody did, but just a reminder that that's not what we want to do here. So with part 2, you were to explain the current state of the situation. This is facts only. You're not supposed to call it a problem, and that's because it could be an opportunity, and it could be that the current performance exceeds standards. We don't know. So you're simply explaining what is. There should be no bias in here. We shouldn't say it's a problem. We shouldn't say anything like that. We should just explain what is happening. If you had bias or you called it a problem, you might want to go back and rewrite that and take all of those biases out. This is one of the hardest parts about what we do, I think, is to look at it truly objectively and just state what's happening without putting adjectives about whether it's good or bad. So, how did you state the current problem? The current situation. So I might say something like, there's a company and they have received some negative press and are concerned about it. I am not saying that that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just stating a fact. I would say that there have been accidents and these accidents have caused injury, and that the company is looking to training to solve some of the problem. Something to that effect. I think I would put a little more work into it than that, but that's just the gist of what I might say. Then we're going to look at the desired state from the current state. And the desired state we should have done in part 1. And that might have been something like that we want no accidents or accidents to occur at a certain rate, and they are never or that they don't cause damage to equipment or people or something to that effect. So we have some desired state there from our current state. And it's looking at the desired state and at the current state that helps us know what the gap is. So the desired state here is to not have accidents. The current state is that there are accidents. So there's a gap. And the gap is accidents. Accidents that cause injury and accidents that affect how customers see the company. So in that gap, those accidents is why that happens. So why does this gap exist? What's causing this to go on? And you were given information in here. So some of it may be training, some of it is could be culture. Maybe people, it isn't a cultural thing. Maybe people just wander off and leave things. Maybe there aren't processes in place that prevent people from walking away and leaving their machines. Maybe we need to have a process, for example, that anytime you leave your machine, you have to take the key and turn it in somewhere. I don't know. I'm just making things up. But so we clearly, I'm guessing, do not have processes in place that prevent these accidents from happening. We may not have a culture in place that prevent these things from happening. We may not have training that prevents these things from happening. Those are the things that you would look at. But what allows this gap to exist? Make sense? Okay. So the last part would be, what would you suggest to fix the gap? So for everything that you listed, for example, that people need training. So what kind of training would you provide? Maybe you said that it is cultural and that the company doesn't have a focus on safety. And so you might suggest things like having weekly safety check-ins, or putting posters up that focus on safety, or having a safety review, or having checklists related to safety. So that might be something that you do to help transform the culture to be one that thinks about safety. You might also do things like give people bonuses based on how safe they are. The more safe they are, they get a bonus of some kind. So there's lots of different things that you could do to help them focus on safety. And this is one of the things that I love about performance improvement. There is no right answer, meaning that there's not just one thing that will work. Lots of things will work. A lot of it's a question of how much money do you have? How much time do you have? Who do we have doing it? So sometimes you just want to do one thing and see what happens. But you often can do multiple things, and you don't have to worry about, like, I didn't pick the exact right thing. Something might help some. And then you go back and you say, oh, well, maybe that wasn't the best thing, but it was a good thing. And now what can we do? So you would simply say, here's where we are, here's where we want to be, and here's what we think caused that gap, the behaviors or the culture or the processes. And using Gilbert's 6-step model is a really good place to do this. What are they missing? Feedback? Is it motivation that's an issue? Whatever, use that and you can just write all that out. Now, part 3 was, did the training for all approach solve the problem? Explain. I thought that it was interesting that Joe, as he was writing this, was saying that he had some strong concerns that the managers really wanted training only, and that he felt that that wasn't the solution. And that typically happens in performance improvement. As you can probably attest, you often have thought, it seems to me, that training was the solution. But training is not the solution or the only solution most of the time. And then the last part was, what metrics would you suggest Joe monitor, and how often should those metrics be collected? So metrics are things like, how often are there accidents? If you had suggested that people do something like turn in their key, how often did that not happen? So find something that you can measure. That's what a metric is. And then explain how you would do it and how often the metric should be collected. And then what are you going to do with that information? I didn't ask that, but that's a key issue here. We never want to collect information that we're not willing to do something with. That's just a waste of time and energy. So I hope this was helpful. That's the end of this feedback on parts 2 and 3 of the case study. Feel free to go back and amend your assignments. Right now, I don't think anybody's getting A's on any of these. People are probably doing the average of C work. So go back and look at your things and listen to the feedback and make some amendments so that you can change your case study. And again, I said before, I'm not going to grade you on these. I'm going to grade you on the final. So you don't have to go back and change them to actually put them in right now, but change them so that when you put in the final, it's in more like A or B shape rather than C shape. Okay, hope you have a good weekend, and you'll hear from me soon. Bye-bye.